Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. While much of business is transactional, now more than ever, there's an increasing demand on business values. People want to feel good about themselves and the products and services that they buy. Most of the time, EQ trounces IQ. So, what does your business stand for? How do you treat your customers? What do you really care about? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. In the mad scramble of doing business, human values tend to be overlooked. But it's those values which underpin a life fulfilled. That's according to Mark Carter, international keynote speaker and author of Add Value, which unpacks the meaning of value both in our businesses and personal lives. He has a framework of 5 key values we should all adopt, which he outlines shortly. First, Chris Ashmore asks Mark to explain how we get a better understanding of values.
A simple way to comprehend is that we're all wired a certain way with filters. We have biases towards specific aspects of value, if you will. And my perception might be very different than yours. Yes, you might have a business leader that's really heavily driven by bottom line dollars. But then you simultaneously have people that are more in that emotional space of what things feel like rather than looking at the numbers. And so this is why this comprehension of the broader understanding is important, because when we're trying to communicate or perceive what other people value, we might have to break our own filters. So it's what I call, ideally, we'll understand more of them and we learn to fill the value buckets so we can really appeal to more of them by default.
Well, in your book, you talk about the different values or the value model. Mm-hmm. Can you walk us through the 5 values that you write about, starting with the personal value? Mm-hmm. And you make a particular point about emotional intelligence and how we can improve EQ. Is that right?
Yeah. So the 5 aspects, there's personal value, tangible value, emotional value, service value, relationship value. And I like, if you've seen the movie The Fifth Element, Luc Besson, the director, I think it's a great example because the elements, these classical elements, relate to these. The fifth element in that movie was the person. And personal value is what brings the others to life. And so that's why that personal value is really an underpinning critical one. And the more I've worked with behavioral sciences, the more I've learned to appreciate the importance of the deeper intelligences like emotional intelligence. And EQ is very much, it's broken down into simple facets. You've got self-awareness and self-control as a part of emotional intelligence. But you've also got social awareness and social skills as a part of emotional intelligence. Whilst it may be a natural gift with some people, it's also a muscle that you can train and work. Some people might have great self-awareness, but they're not the most comfortable person in a social environment. Some people put too much emphasis on other people and not necessarily on themselves. And so EQ is balancing and working on all of those. And imagine it's like a wheel. If all of them are kind of equal and you're riding on that wheel, it's going to be a smoother ride. If you've got ones that are out of whack, it's going to be a bumpy journey potentially. Think about it that way.
Well, the next value is tangible value. What's that?
Yeah, that is in business. That's the one we love, right? Every manager and business owner knows these. You get your BAS statements and it's the numbers, it's managers, it's the dollars, it's the percentages, the numbers, and the time. It's essentially, what can we measure? What can we measure that's grounded and real that we can look at and see an impact, essentially? So it's pretty much why most people, when they do think about value, or a lot of people, will instantly reach for this idea of what we're willing to pay for something because they've got their business hat on and thinking about it in those terms.
And of course, it's as important as the others.
100%. It's absolutely important, especially when we are running businesses, we've got to be across the numbers. When I'm working with leaders, I really encourage they coach and work with their people. They know their own numbers. So it's absolutely, they're important. The thing I highlight, though, it's not the be all and end all. Think about like a soccer match. If Australia were beaten 3-1 by Brazil in a World Cup game, we could talk hypothetical, but that's a real. Imagine I was the coach, right, of the team, and I wasn't allowed to watch the game. And then I'm asked to fix the problem. Where do I start? By just looking at the numbers, it doesn't give me the full picture. I've got to look at the behaviors. I've got to look at the actions. I've got to look at the field of play. And we got to think that the numbers are important, yes, yet the numbers are a lagging indicator of everything else that's going on.
Well, the next value, the third value in your book is emotional value.
Yes, I love this one as well. And my TEDx talk, I use a teddy bear in my TEDx talk to really highlight this one and bring it to life simply. But another way is think about auctions, right? How many times people might go to a house auction? They've got a fixed budget in mind, and yet that gets blown out the water. And why? Is because it's that emotion tapping in, because this is their dream home, the environment, the area is perfect. And so the emotional value, people will buy things just because they feel good about it. And so I break that down. The 4 simple ways to think about that is we buy into stories emotionally. We're sensory beings, so more sensory engagement. And in the digital age, things like personalization, when you make things personal, or unique, creative innovation. These 4 ways are how you can really tap in and increase that emotional value impact.
Well, the next is service value, and this one area in particular a lot of businesses lack. Is that right?
Well, it's certainly one that is picking up in the last couple of decades as in importance. And we see that by things like CSR, being corporate social responsibility. That is now a bigger topic than it was 10 or 20 years ago. And this is really indicative of how customers are now looking at the manner with which businesses operate, not just the goods or the service themselves. And this idea of service value, it's rooted in, again, 4 aspects is, are we creating solutions? If we're going to do that, we've got to properly understand the problem. Are we creating and delivering solutions with long-term positive possibilities? But we've also got to think about the consequences of those choices and actions. Not every innovation, not every piece of technology is a great piece of technology. In fact, I don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma recently is out now really highlighting the darker side on a factual level of digital on people. And it's things like thinking about people outside of ourselves, our communities, and absolutely in the environment. So this service value holistically is really better solutions, better possibilities, service quality for others and community, and impact on broader environment. So yeah, absolutely, it's picking up in momentum from customers' perspectives.
Well, finally, there's relationship value. And you write about the magic 150. What's that?
Yeah, Robin Dunbar, who's an anthropologist, he was studying primate groups and he found that those groups had a social circle and it was limited by brain size in essence. And he thought, what would happen if he took that same science and dropped it into a more significant primate group, namely us? And it spat out this magic number of 150. And then lo and behold, it shows itself. And it's really relating to the number of quality relationships that we can really maintain at any one number in time. And it shows itself in average wedding invitations, even average number of friends that people are connected with. And it's an interesting one because in the digital age, people are often trying to scramble to connect with more than 150 people in a single coffee break over a single digital post. But often that might be lacking the quality of relationship that you really want in building sustainable relationships. And this is true for our business as well with our clients and customers.
Could you elaborate?
Yeah, for sure. So if you think in a business sense, if I was working in a business, I'm an account manager, for example, if I've got a client base of 500 or 600 clients to nurture and maintain, that might be very hard. And the quality of that relationship may not actually be there. And so it's good. This is where businesses have cadence and rhythms about regularity of contact or top tier clients that you really nurture and massage, because the reality is that a quality relationship is part of the quality of the time that you invest in that. You nurture and you build it. That's where you build the longevity of the relationship with your customers. If we're trying too hard, we may sacrifice the quality of those relationships. So if you think about it in those terms.
Well, in summary then, Mark, in the modern digital age, is it harder or easier to add value, particularly with online sort of communications?
I think what's beautiful for the digital age is it's definitely easier, both. You can use technology for the efficiencies and to create some really wonderful innovation and creative touches. But the important thing is not to sacrifice the human touch in doing that. So it's blending, and I think there's been this rush by default to use technology, whereas actual fact, it's yes, use the right tech, not all the tech, and make sure you're still applying that human touch. So you can use both really well, and then look for how you can focus on the numbers that matter to other people, not your numbers. Focus on better stories and true personalization. Focus on your impact to community and the service you give to others, and do it with the best of your ability. I mean, that's in a nutshell if you take the essence of the framework in the model. Fill those value buckets.
That was author of Add Value, Mark Carter. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Executive producer is Heather Dawson. Producers are Nick Schilberger, Chris Ashmore, and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts and Belinda Trimboli. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.